Every legend is based on fact. Every myth is grounded in truth. For 17 years, the town of Haddonfield, Illinois, has been haunted by a night when evil roamed the streets and a madman ruled the night. Everyone knows his name. Now, everyone will know the truth.
I knew what he was, but I never knew why.
Halloween 6, the origin of Michael Myers.
South Pasadena has a lot of important landmarks. Mostly from Halloween 1 and 2.
1 and 2. Back to the Future.
Yep.
Teen Wolf.
Halloween.
Pee-wee's
Halloween
Big Top.
2.
Big Top Pee-wee, rather.
Well, the leaves are falling, the pumpkins are being carved, and the knives are slashing yet again here at Recon Cinema Studios. That's right. It's our special Halloween episode of ReconCinemation. I'm your host, John Diner.
I'm David Munchak.
I'm Brent Hutchins.
And this is the podcast that takes a look back at some of our favorite films from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. We're checking out how they hold up today. And we're here again. It's time to look at the next installment of the Halloween series, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers.
It seems like it's the Shocktober of sequels. Like there's just been nothing but deep franchise sequels.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we got a couple other things in there, but these guys we're running deep into this right now with all of the Nightmare, Friday, and Halloween movies.
Yeah, we've had
Sequel Mania.
It's sequel city here at ReconCinemation, and yeah, we're deep into it. Where this Shocktober, we've looked at Nightmare on Elm Street 4, the Dream Master. We looked at Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. We pivoted to, I guess, the first of a series in The Exorcist, and now here we are, Halloween 6. Most fans say the best of all the Halloween films.
Oh, do they? Most fans say the best of the Halloween.
True.
None of the fans I talk to.
Well, David, it's got to be your favorite.
How many fans have you been talking to, by the way?
Where
are you finding them?
3.
It's in the it's in the message boards.
Yeah.
I was going to say it's on your
Haddonfield, Illinois. No, but it's we're getting through all of these sequels, and we're at this phase of all the Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween franchises that maybe we're not in the best movies, but they're all interesting, and it is interesting to see how some of these movies go off the rails, like this one, and the making of the movie is a lot more interesting than what came out on screens for the audience. But if you've not been listening and you want to catch up on our old episodes of the other Halloween movies, just check them out. We've got Halloween's 1 through 5 in our archives at www.ReconCinemation.com, so you can check those out anytime. And here we are. But and gosh, I don't even know where to start. But before we get into it, let's do our segment we like to call 6 Degrees of ReconCinemation.
Oh, shit.
Okay.
Here we go. It's my turn again.
Let's go.
Okay. So, by the end of the episode, you guys will need to connect Halloween 6 to Toy Story.
Oh.
Another 1995 film. Without cheating, without looking it up. Halloween 6 to Toy Story. So we'll come back at the end of the episode and see what you guys came up with. Okay, so now coming back to Halloween 6, when was the first time you guys saw this movie? Brent, what was the first viewing for you?
Oh, first viewing. It's interesting. This one was not necessarily on my radar when it released originally. I think well, I'm positive. I know when I watched it, but I think when it released originally, it came out and Seven was out, and Seven was kind of like a huge deal. So I think at the time
Yeah.
I was more interested in that. But I saw this, I believe, summer of '96, and the reason I saw it is because I was just graduated high school. Local newspaper publishes an article saying that there's open calls for a movie that's being made just 20 minutes away from where I live. The movie was called The Locusts, which at the time had a few young up and coming actors in it. Ashley Judd, who was probably the most popular at the time, was in it. Kate Capshaw was in it, and she was obviously the most well known. But it was also Vince Vaughn, Jeremy Davies, and Mr. Paul Rudd. And so on the day of shooting, the one day that I went in, I ended up sitting in the costume trailer for like 20 minutes. And he was in there at the same time. Totally chill dude. He was getting his makeup done, and we were just kind of like talking and hanging out. And at the time, the only thing he was really known for was Clueless, really. Which had just come out. It came out right before this movie, but had come out like the summer before I was sitting in this trailer. And so we talked for like 20 minutes. He was totally chill. I was super excited just to be like on a real live movie set. And he was like so down to earth and totally awesome. And afterwards, I was like, I got to look this dude up and watch everything that he's in. And that's when I realized he was in this. And so I finally, over the summer, when I was working at Video Impact, watched it. And that 20 minutes talking to Paul Rudd was probably, it's definitely has made me a fanboy of his my entire life. So prior to him getting super popular during the Judd Apatow phases, and even more so during Marvel and all that, I've always kind of enjoyed his movies because of that kind of experience. But that was absolutely the reason that I saw this movie, because I had completely missed it. I think I was pretty detached from Halloween in general at this point, because 4 and 5 were not great. And I saw 6 on the shelves, but I was like, man, I don't think so, until Paul convinced me otherwise.
And whatever happened to him?
Wow.
Never
Paul
saw
Rudd?
him again. Yeah.
He hasn't done much.
Yeah, not a lot.
I think a couple years ago he was like sexiest man alive. That was like, what just happened? I don't know.
Yeah.
Pretty strange, but you never know who you're talking to when, 30, almost 30 years ago, or over 30 years ago, whenever. I'm not doing math right now, but it, I would have never suspected that this dude was gonna be, people's sexiest man alive, or be, in some of the highest grossing box office movies ever. So
who would have guessed, really, that he, even during the Apatow years, that he would have gone
absolutely
the direction he went afterwards.
I mean, Clueless, honestly, after watching this movie, you would never guess that he would be in anything like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Because even though Clueless released first, I think this was filmed first, and this feels like a very much like a first film kind of performance.
Yeah. What about you, David? Is this a first time viewing for you? There's no way you saw this movie before. Not this one.
No.
Yeah.
No. Didn't even know they went this high. So watched it this week.
And how angry at me were you while you were watching it?
I mean, there's always been a trembling anger for both of you since every Shocktober. So
pure hatred.
It doesn't really like peak or valley. It's pretty
it's just steady. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I didn't spring it on you.
Yeah. So I was prepared, as I normally am.
Yeah.
And I got to delight in the 82-minute long Halloween movie. Is it 82 minutes? Or
So
it's 80,
it's somewhere
under,
around there.
it's under
Yeah.
90.
Yeah.
I think
As
I
it should
think
be.
I remember thinking this is well under 90 minutes. This is a TV movie.
They could have cut out another like 70 minutes of it, and it would have been maybe better,
There's
Yeah.
entire characters and plot lines you can cut, and then just it's a 25-minute Halloween special.
Yeah.
Instead of cutting more of it out, they actually made 3 different versions that you can watch, which is
oh,
Yeah.
which is the right way to go. That's the right decision.
It's choose your own adventure, I guess. With
It really
this
is.
one.
is there are the other two better than this?
It depends on
Or is
which
that a
one you
joke?
saw. I think the one that's most easily viewable now is the producer's cut, which was not the theatrical cut.
Oh,
And that is, I guess, considered the best of all the versions, but using a term like best is very
Yeah.
subjective here.
Yeah.
I watched it on the streaming platform Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not an ad
So-
for Paramount
so-
Plus.
So you saw the producer's cut, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It is
All right.
the we'll say it's the least incoherent of the 3 versions.
Oh no.
Imagine that.
Instead of the word best, we'll say least incoherent.
Sure.
That is quite a qualifier.
Yeah. I
Definitely.
so 1995 is when I really got into the Halloween movies, and it was right around the time that I remember seeing like previews for Halloween 6 coming, which got me excited. But then I really watched the previews, and it looked, even just from the trailers, I thought it looked bad. But there had been this, and we'll get into the making of this, 5 or 6 year gap in the Halloween series. So there was some excitement about a new Halloween movie, but that quickly was squashed once people started to see it. So I didn't actually end up seeing this one till it was on video, Brent, probably right around the same time that you did. It was the fall of 96 when I saw it. And my friend Chris and I, after class, or after school, we would like go down to his house, which is right near the school. And we went through the Halloween movies, like all of them, except 3. We just leapfrogged over 3 because I was mad at it at the time. And yeah, and I was just like baffled by it. And that was the original theatrical cut, which has an entirely different ending and just very different format than the one that's most readily available right now. But I remember seeing like, oh, that's the guy from Clueless, the guy from those Game Genie commercials, or those or Super Nintendo, one of them. That's all Paul Rudd was to me at that time, and to anybody. And so it was funny just to see how big he would eventually get, like we were just talking about. But yeah, so, and I have not seen Halloween 6 since the fall of 96 until watching it for this episode. So there was a lot I didn't remember. I will happily never watch this one again. And that's
it.
the end of the episode.
You're never tossing this one back on for fun.
No.
For background, for not even to teach people to stay away from this kind of movie.
No, the only ones I watch the original Halloween quite often. Halloween 2, I'll watch, every couple of years. 4, maybe right behind that, and then the 2018 version. So that's all the Michael Myers I need.
Understood. I get that feeling. I know what it's like to be full up on Michael Myers.
You're there.
Yeah.
I'm topped off.
Okay, so let's before we dive into the movie, Brent, let's go on a little ReconCine time travel. Bring us back to September 29th, 1995. What's happening in the world?
Well, let's see. September 29th, 1995. The most important and coolest thing is 3 days after my brother's 15th birthday. And that's probably
Pretty cool.
the biggest news in town. But beyond that, Bill Clinton is president. The PlayStation was released in September 1995. The very first PS1 came in 1995. Let's see. They had on TV, big things were like Murder, She Wrote, Married with Children, ER, and Xena Warrior Princess. grunge was starting to kind of like die down a little bit, but it was still a big deal. And big time news stuff at the time was the trial of Mr. O.J. Simpson.
Oh, that.
Yeah, that was going on for sure. And then video games wise, Mortal Kombat 2. That was happening. That's what was happening at my house on my brother's birthday 3 days earlier was Mortal Kombat 2.
The home release.
Yes.
The home release happened.
Mortal
Tuesday, Mortal Monday, I think it was.
Mortal Monday.
Yeah,
it's probably more.
As we covered in our Mortal Kombat episode. Again, dig that one out of the archives, ReconCinemation.com. That's one of our better episodes. You guys did a great job on that one.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, rewinding for a second. PlayStation coming out.
Yeah,
that was like I think my life changed when I got my first PlayStation. I just thought that was such an advancement compared to what Genesis and I never had Super Nintendo, but like, what those systems were. PlayStation were just such a leap ahead.
Yeah.
Did you guys have the PS1?
I did. I eventually got it in late '97. After enjoying my friend's systems. So it was one of my first big purchases, like after having a job.
I'm pretty sure we had the PS1, but there was a time in my life where I kind of like dipped out on video games. So the NES, then the Super NES was all into those. Then my brother got into Sega because I was like the Nintendo kid, so he had to be the Sega kid. He got into Mortal Kombat. That was happening. And then there's kind of a gray period, like end of high school for me, where it's like, I didn't really video game much, but I definitely remember playing things like Twisted Metal 2, but I think that was all PS2. I don't know if that was on PlayStation or PS2.
No, that was PS1.
Okay. So
yeah, 1, 2, and 3. I'm a big Twisted Metal nut. 1, 2, and 3 were all on PS1.
Yeah. Greatest early PlayStation game, I feel like, for sure. Too bad they totally muffed the TV series, but I would love if they made that game again, because that would be rad to play.
I will say, if you're a PlayStation Plus member, they have in the catalog, they have Twisted Metal 1 and 2 available now, so I've been playing them for the past like 2 weeks
in their archives. Yeah, that'd be dope to play.
Yeah.
I would just like to see an updated version.
Yeah, well, they could. The fourth game was great, Twisted Metal Black. That was for PS2. David, try to tell us what the heck is happening in Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, please.
Oh boy. Let me know if this is on track. So Michael Myers is free again on Halloween as he stalks his adopted family. The adopted family of his sister, who is living in his home, while he's trying to track down his niece, who has given birth to his child, which I guess is a plot twist in the middle of the movie, but it's not unobvious. To fulfill the will of the cult that serves him, I think. And then Tommy Doyle, who was the young boy on Laurie's babysitting gig when Michael attacked her, is a young man now, and he's keeping an unhealthy tab on the Strode household and gets involved to save Michael's son from the cult. And there's other stuff with previous characters like Dr. Loomis and the woman that lives in the Strode home that's with her son also has a son, or is that a little brother? I can't quite track it. I hate this movie.
It's all very clear.
That seems about right.
Your confusion equals the audience's confusion as they watched the movie.
In the middle of the movie, I was like, "Wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? This is nuts."
It really is bizarre, this concoction of new characters in this one. But
I think I was talking to somebody else about this the other day, and one of my coworkers who is a fan of
Ooh.
of this movie. And there are fans of this movie, and that's fair. I think the thing with this that's interesting is it's trying to tie a bunch of shit together that was never really established in 4 and 5, but it's meant to be the third part of this trilogy of 4 and 5, right? Like the Jamie Lloyd trilogy. And
Right.
like the Thorn deal and the Man in Black and all this stuff that really didn't exist in the fourth movie at all and only existed as a small snippet in the fifth movie. Now they've created this entire like subplot that is supposed to carry the entire sixth movie, and it just doesn't work. Like it doesn't work, and it definitely, you know, it's in so many different directions. There's so many different things that are getting done that they're trying to like kind of tie into this. Like it just feels like one of those like too many cooks in the kitchen. Like there's no clear direction. The story's all over the place. And, you know, like trying to like tie up these loose ends for a thing that never even had really a storyline to begin with. Right? Like, how do you tie together two previous movies in the third movie? You know, like it's interesting, and it's not successful.
Well, the whole, you know, go back in our archives, listen to our Halloween 5 episode, because we talk about how the Man in Black character was really just added in while they were shooting. There was no plan for that character. There was no real storyline there. It's just something they added because they were, you know, to create this other sense of mystery that there was no follow-up for it. So, but you know, we're gonna dig through the pile of writers and directors that were involved in the pre-production of this movie in just a minute. But there's a reason it feels like it's many different movies and it's being pulled in a lot of different directions, and there's a reason it worked out that way. But we are in 1995 when this comes out, we're really like, this is the year before Scream, and we're really in the doldrums of the horror genre. Like we're in deep into a lot of sequels and various franchises. But listen, I'm going to fire off some horror movies that came out in 95, and you'll see kind of where we're at quality wise. Candyman 2, Children of the Corn 3, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. I do like that one.
I secret.
There's a couple good
spots.
ones. Yeah. The Howling, New Moon Rising, Ice Cream Man, starring Clint Howard, Leprechaun 3, Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions. There's a Piranha remake, I think a TV movie that came out. The Prophecy, Species, starring Michael Madsen. Tales from the Crypt's Tales from the Hood, right? Wasn't that a Tales from the Crypt movie? No, Tales from the Hood is just its own. Okay.
The Tales from the Crypt movies were Demon Knight and Bordello of Blood. Those are
Bordello of Blood. That's
the only two they got to do.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, Vampire in Brooklyn, Village of the Damned by John Carpenter, and last but certainly not least, Witchboard 3.
Okay.
So that is
classic.
Okay.
Yeah, like look at that list of horror from 1995, and we're really in. There's a couple good ones in there, but overall pretty bad shape up until Scream kind of energizes the whole genre the following year. Now, also at this point, where are Freddy Krueger? Where is Jason Voorhees? Well, they're kind of nowhere. The Freddy Krueger was basically done at this point. New Nightmare had come out in 1994, was not a big hit, and that was the end of the franchise at the time. Jason Voorhees, the last time he had been seen, which we'll be covering next year, is Jason Goes to Hell, which wrapped up that franchise for almost 10 years. So both of those characters are out of the picture, and finally it's just Michael Myers who's got the whole spotlight to himself, and this is what he came out with. So, all right, so let's catch up. Halloween 5 comes out in 1989, is a failure at the box office. Does not work on in many different ways. And it's left the caretaker of the franchise, who's Mustafa Akkad, very frustrated and unclear about where to start taking it for the next movies. So, Brent, you mentioned the Jamie Lloyd trilogy.
Right.
That character, played by Danielle Harris, was set up. That is the new lead of the series, along with Dr. Loomis, and we're left with this kind of this cliffhanger ending at the end of part 5, where the man in black breaks into the sheriff's station and frees Michael Myers. And I can't remember, where is Jamie at the end of 5? Do you guys recall?
I don't remember. Was she
Is
taken
she on her
away?
way to the hospital?
I thought she was, but then in this one we get this kind of like they recap that, but then we see the man in black has kidnapped her, which I don't think we actually saw that in part 5.
No, isn't the end of 5 like the man in black shows up at the jail and he's like a silhouette?
Yep. Yeah, and he breaks him out, breaks Michael Myers out. So
yeah. So we skip ahead here.
So with it not doing well and a question mark of where it's going to go, Mustafa Akkad hires Daniel Farrens to start writing, the next script. And Daniel Farrens actually directed some great documentaries. A lot of where we get our information from is from a book a lot of information that we get for the Friday the 13th franchise comes from a book called Crystal Lake Memories, and Daniel Farrens directed a documentary series that's based on that book. So if you're a fan of the Friday the 13th series, you should definitely check out that documentary. He also does a series of documentaries on Nightmare on Elm Street, the Nightmare on Elm Street films. So, he is very well versed in horror, and he is a big fan of the Halloween series. So he puts in a tremendous amount of time and maps out all of the backstories, the through lines, the character biographies, the Myers family tree, the Strode family tree, like straightens out who everybody is, what their backstories are, potential plot lines going forward. He kind of like cleans everything up and he writes a Bible in television. Every show is supposed to have a Bible, so that any questions that someone would ask about characters, it's all laid out there. And he does this for the Halloween films. Everything about Dr. Loomis, about Laurie Strode, Jamie Lloyd, and all of that's in there. But around this same time, Miramax ends up buying the rights to the series and kind of designates Dimension Films to be the distributor for it and the producer of the next Halloween movies. So Dimension Films, which was huge, became a huge distributor, especially after the Scream films and a lot of big horror movies getting released all the way into the 2000s. I think they're still technically around. They had partnered with MTV for the Scream series, but I don't think that they're actually producing the last couple of Scream films. And I believe that it looks like they're owned by Viacom now. So I guess they're part of the same umbrella that Paramount is under. Right. And they did end up losing. So they acquire the rights to the Halloween franchise in the very early 1990s. They lose them somewhere around 2015. But, they've got new producers. So you're going to have new creative kind of vision for these films, and trying to figure out how to make a successful Halloween movie. And I don't think there was no formula for it. They just brought back Michael Myers in 1988 after having been on ice for a while, brings him back for 2 films and trying to figure out how to right the ship. We talked about this in our Friday the 13th films, that when you see that it's going downhill, studios tend to get desperate about how to right the ship, and that's what they're at that phase here. that again, Halloween movies are not losing money, but they're not making anywhere near the money that they are hoping for. So all right, so we sort of get to this point from 91 through 90, I guess early 94, of this revolving door of writers and directors. So Gary Fleeter comes on to direct with Phil Rosenberg hired as a writer. The script that they wrote together, Mustafa Akkad literally like threw the script across the room, and that was the end of it for them.
Get this shit out of here.
Yeah. So, and all these take time. Like, it's not these scripts, it takes months to write a script. So next up is Quentin Tarantino to write, who pushes for Scott Spiegel to direct. Now, imagine
the Tarantino
a Tarantino
version sounds pretty interesting.
It could be, but he this is before Pulp Fiction and probably right after Reservoir Dogs. So he's one of the biggest writers in town. And Scott Spiegel's a friend of his who'd written Evil Dead 2. And there's a lot of debate whether Tarantino actually wrote a script or whether he just made a pitch to Dimension. But whatever it was, the storyline he wanted to do was basically what he kept repeating, which was Natural Born Killers. Right. That was his version for True Romance, was very similar to Natural Born Killers. This would be Michael Myers and the Man in Black go on this road trip killing spree.
Thelma and Louise,
yeah. I don't know. I guess, would we have rather had that version over what we got? What do you guys think?
I mean,
no one would have liked that. No one would have liked a road trip.
There was a time where I liked Natural Born Killers, and there's still moments in that movie that hit, but I don't know. Like that would have been weird too. Like, no, I don't want to see Michael Myers with the Man in Black in a Thelma and Louise movie. Like, that's weird.
It's everybody complaining. Well, this isn't a Halloween movie. Michael Myers doesn't drive around the country with a buddy and kill people. There's, no matter how good it was, it'd be like, well, this isn't Halloween. There'd be those purists. So I don't know how well it'd be received. It'd have to be like, you'd have to have a real open mind, I think, to really pivot this way.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Tarantino doing Star Trek, that's been talked about for years. Like, what would that be? And do we really want to see that?
Right. I'd be more into a storyline of Michael Myers being possessed by something in the house, a la Amityville Horror. And so he's always just trying to get back to the house and terrorize the family that happens to live there until they shut the house down. Instead of coming up with like a Thorn cult, what the hell is this thing? Magic tattoos that go from one wrist to the next. Like,
but you don't have that?
I do, but we don't talk about it.
Yeah, it's hard though that with both, not so much Nightmare on Elm Street, but Friday the 13th and Halloween, that the core story is Jason Voorhees at Crystal Lake and Michael Myers in Haddonfield. Yeah. So but how many times can you do that before it starts to get old and tired?
Until you have to take Jason to Manhattan or
exactly.
For sure.
But yet they're seeing how that failed. So it's kind of like, well, what are you going to do? You keep it in plain old Haddonfield. That's boring after a while, but if you start changing it up too much, then it doesn't feel like it's that movie.
I mean, this is the same issue I had with like the new versions of the Halloween movies, right? They had an opportunity at some point to sit down and figure out a through line from the first movie to the last movie, instead of just, we've got two movies, let's tie it all together in a third movie that doesn't make any kind of sense.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is exactly what happened with the newer ones, which you can hear me rant crazily.
Oh, yeah.
In the archives. But it's the same sort of deal. Like it just doesn't, they really bought into this Thorn thing and this Man in Black thing, and
Yeah.
yeah,
They committed.
they did commit.
I think this is for this is firmly in the case for we don't need more sequels to things that we enjoyed.
Yes.
We enjoyed the thing we enjoyed. Doing anything with it is going to affect the joy of that original to a certain degree and sort of ruin its like legacy and positivity for you. So there's no the need of course is financial. Like okay, audiences will come to see it, keep the budget
make
low,
money. Yeah,
make a couple bucks, and then we use it as tax write-off stuff for this, and we cover some of our losses somewhere else. So it's like but even fans who no one cares. Like no one likes this, stop making it.
And
people are
way,
still going to see it.
By the way, we're still doing that now. We're still making that same mistake, and we always the studios always will, probably.
Yeah, anything to put anything that they think is going to put butts in seats to make money.
Yeah,
this superhero movie costs us 100 million, so the sequel to it should be 250 million, and that'll make us 2.5 times more money. And it's like that's not true at all.
Yeah,
you're not going to turn that into $7 billion or whatever.
For some time, that math did work though with the Marvel movies. I don't think it works anymore. People are not flocking to those the same way they did pre Avengers Endgame, but
that's when you have a clear storyline happening. When you have the long game mapped out like they had through Endgame.
It makes all the difference.
It makes sense. Like you're setting things up that have a payoff. You know what the end is. So you can do all these cool things to lead to that path. This did not have that. Friday the 13th did not have that. Nightmare on Elm Street didn't have that. None of these did, and that's why they all it was like bad movie after bad movie. And I know there's fans of it, and there are plenty worse movies than Halloween 6, but it's the potential that we know Halloween is this great thing. We got perfection with the first film, and then we've got some great things in a couple of the other movies, but we've never been able to get anywhere near that first one again at this point, especially.
It's amazing. The more of these we watch, the more I really start to appreciate Halloween 3.
Huh. Yeah.
Which still is freaking ridiculous that they called it a Halloween movie, but it is so much better than 4, 5, and 6. Like it is so much better.
It really is. And if
it is.
The only thing they need to do different is just take that Halloween 3 out of the title. And then I think all the baggage that comes with it is just gone.
Absolutely. Or just lose part 2 and then do the anthology thing that you wanted to do all together.
Yeah.
But either way, whatever. That's not what went down. Instead, we have 14 different storylines for Halloween. We have 3 different versions of this movie, none of which are any good.
Yeah. So after Tarantino and Scott Spiegel, Spiegel really never, I don't think he ever ended up really putting a full script together. Roger Avery makes an attempt, who co-wrote Pulp Fiction with Tarantino. Scott Rosenberg, makes an attempt at a script. Those both fail. Matthew Patrick is brought on to direct. He leaves the project. Fred Walton is brought on the project. He leaves the project just weeks before shooting. They ended up bringing Daniel Farrens back in June of 1994, and they tell him you got to pick up the pieces from 4, 5, and all these different scripts that were half written and put a story together. So since he's the one that knew the franchise the best out of everybody, it falls back to him. And they bring on Joe Chappelle to direct. Now, Joe Chappelle had only done a very low-budget movie that got a lot of attention called Thieves Quartet. But Joe Chappelle became a big TV director later on, including some of the very best episodes of The Wire, which, as we're recording this, I'm currently rewatching. And I literally watched probably the best episode of the series the other night. And I was like, oh, Joe Chappelle, there you go. That's kind of hilarious that he does such amazing work, but this is on his resume too.
We all have a Halloween 6 in our resume.
Yeah, definitely.
We do, yeah,
Yeah.
we do. And he's really in a tough position because he's getting pulled in a lot of different directions, and that's what's really going on with this movie. Is that Dimension Films wants to be making, and the Weinsteins, ugh, I don't want to say that name, but are wanting to make one movie. Then you've got Mustafa Akkad, who wants to make a different movie, and you have Daniel Farrens, who wants to make a different movie, and Joe Chappelle
Right.
is just shooting these scenes, trying to appease somebody, anybody, everybody.
He makes all
This
three
is-
movies.
Yeah, and like I don't. It's kind of like Alien 3, that I don't fault the director for being put in this situation. They're doing, especially him. It's and David Fincher as well. It's like your first
Yeah.
opportunity at a big movie, your first big movie. It's a franchise movie, so you want to go out there and do a good job, but it's tough. It's hard when the movie is not on its feet for a director to do what they do.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's kind of get into the characters and the plot lines here. So, the Thorn cult plot line, do you guys understand, David, like, what is your take on that? Like, could you explain what they're doing?
It's a bunch of people that believe in the sort of we get some lore from Tommy Doyle that explains that there's a constellation of the runic symbol of the thorn, which is the most evil rune that there is, and so that there's this cult that sort of worships that's evil, that bad mojo of that constellation. But then it's also tied to Michael's presence in Haddonfield. And so that the Tommy points out that whenever the constellation is present is when Michael Myers kills. And so it was only on certain years and in the timeline. So but it's the action. So Tommy gives the audience a taste of what it is to sort of explain what these cultists do, but we never get anything with the cultists, really. We don't get a lot of like they're so far in the C story of the movie, like it doesn't get enough attention. So it's just like this hanging like extra detail. It seems very extraneous. So instead of like leaning into this as like as part of the main plot line, it gets shoved all the way to the side to explain anything and what they're really up to, I think. Right. And Michael embraces them, like he cavorts with them while they do these like rituals with him, right? Like,
well, I mean, he's kind of part of it. He's pure evil, and then the man in black is the watcher over him, right? Like, which makes you kind of think that maybe he, in some way, sort of can manipulate him. And so, I mean, this story, honestly, I think depending on which version you see, it might be a little bit different. But I
think it is. Yeah.
The version that I saw, which is the producer's cut, is mostly based around the Thorn deal here. And it's kind of the handing off of pure evil from Michael Myers to Danny Strode, which is, the little kid that lives in the house now. And also the handing off of the Watcher, the Man in Black, from the Dr. Wen character to the Donald Pleasence character. And the reason Donald Pleasence is now the Watcher is because he's the guy who basically sensed the pure evil in Michael from the get-go. So they're connected, like they're linked.
Yeah.
So
he was the first one to sense the true evil in Michael.
Right. Which doesn't make a lick of sense. But but that's kind of, that's sort of the takeaway. And then Paul Rudd's character, Tommy Doyle, is essentially the kid who was being babysat by Laurie way back in the day, right?
In the first film. Yep.
In the first film. And so like he's like obsessed with all of this and is basically like He's figured out the rune thing. He's like supposed to be your guide through this movie, kind of explaining some of these pieces, but it's so choppy. And Paul Rudd's performance is, look, I love the dude, but the performance is so like concrete and wooden, and it's just like the deliveries are like, I feel like he is deliberately delivering the lines in a very like non performance method, like almost making a joke of the script as he's doing it. Like, I think there's a world in which you can watch his performance of this and be like, he's making a mockery of it. Or you could also watch it and be like, wow, he has not learned what he's doing yet. You know, like it rides a very fine line.
It feels like he's like learning on the job.
Definitely.
It's so strange to see that.
I mean, even
like you watch it now, and today's Paul Rudd would be doing that as a joke.
Well, and he had done some TV stuff and some shorts and some, like, I think a made for TV movie prior to this. But like, if you see his performance in this compared to his performance in Clueless, right? It is night and day. And granted, they're two totally different movies, but just from an acting standpoint, like, he's so much better in Clueless than what his performance is in this. And it's weird to think that these movies that were filmed, I think like 3 months apart from each other, were that like so much changed.
Yeah.
Between the two.
Well, and Clueless really salvaged it for him, because if there was a bigger gap between this and Clueless, I don't know if he would have worked again. Really, in a major movie.
Clueless came out first, which I think also.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Saved his ass. Clueless came out like in July, I think, of 95 or summer of 95, something like that. And even though this movie, it's so funny, you watch the credits of this movie, it's like introducing and starring Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
You know,
he's the first credit.
This, I think it's not. I don't think it's the first credit. I think it's the tail credit, like the also starring at, you know, like I think it's that. But this movie released after Clueless, and I think because Clueless came out and it was so popular, you'll notice the next movies he did were more like the romantic comedy type movies, and he was able to kind of parlay that into stuff until, you know, there's like I was thinking about it, there's like 4 stages of like Paul Rudd's acting. There's kind of the Clueless and romantic comedy stage. There's the Judd Apatow stage. There's the Marvel stage, and then there's all the shit that he did before, which is like, it is definitely Curse of Michael Myers, but there's a handful of other things that are just like, what is this stuff?
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's just odd watching it to see this, you know, what we know now as this really funny actor and this very great actor who's in huge movies, just kind of like having it not work for him. It was a struggle, but it's
almost worth watching just to see him. Like, that's what I would say about this movie. Like, I don't know that there's many reasons to watch it except to watch like the evolution of that, and to see like how a person can like grow like their talent can, you know, just increase exponentially.
So all right, the story in the film is taking place 6 years after Halloween, the events of Halloween 5. So just like in reality, how there's a 6-year gap, there's that same gap in the story, and we're picking up with Jamie Lloyd, who's pregnant and is being, you know, or is giving birth really, and is being wheeled around this dungeon hospital, right?
That's right.
In the clutches of the Thorn cult. And I think one of the real travesties of this movie is the baffling reason they didn't cast Danielle Harris again.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous that they didn't. I mean, she would be the right age for the time
Yeah.
frame still. And in reading and like doing a little research, like there was no reason. Like she was into it, she was ready to do it. It was literally over like a couple $100. Like that's
boy.
what it was. They wanted to pay her scale for the part, and she was like, "Well, I was the star of the fourth and fifth movie." Like, and she wasn't asking for like a ton more money. She was just like, "Shouldn't it be an extra bump?" Like, she basically wanted them to pay for, I don't know, I don't know if it was a union thing or whatever that she had to like get right with.
It was like an insurance thing
Yeah, and she
that she
wanted
had
them to
eat
pay
the
her.
cost of. Yeah.
Yeah, she wanted them to basically like reimburse that amount of money and pay her extra over scale, and they wouldn't do it because they're like, you're in, in the original theatrical version, she gets killed like immediately, and they're like, well, we're not going to do it, and people hadn't realized the genius of killing your star in the first 15 minutes yet, right?
Right. There's a way to do it. If you're going to do that move, there's a way to do it.
Yeah. Scream is the one that introduced that whole, like, let's do it this way. We're going to bait and switch everybody, right? But Halloween wasn't on board. They didn't understand. They weren't going to pay her the extra, like, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, crazy, like a couple $100 maybe to redo the role. And then ultimately the role expanded over the course of the movie when they had to go back and do reshoots because, it was ridiculous.
Yeah. And what they do with the Jamie character is just again, it's a character that feels completely lost. And I think they were feeling like, well, we don't have to worry about the old fans. Like it's just it doesn't matter if it's not Danielle Harris. Like people are just going to watch this movie for this movie, and that's not how it works with these franchise movies and these specific horror, these horror franchises in particular. That like they would be expecting to see Danielle Harris, and the character feels entirely different. And in the theatrical cut, you're right. Like she is gone very early in the movie. And even in the producer's cut, they kind of write her out in a very weak way. But that's all they had.
She makes it much later into the movie, but like there's not a lot going on. There's a couple flashback things that are added in the producer's cut that she would have been a part of. But yeah, like they totally missed the mark. Like, I mean, for a movie like this, like I think the approach has to be to like, give the fans what they want and get them all excited and riled up, and then they're going to bring extra people to the theater.
Yeah. People love to go on dates to horror movies.
They didn't give a shit.
Yeah. So we see a chase sequence of Jamie giving birth. A nurse within the cult or a midwife within the cult helps Jamie escape with the baby out of the hospital. Michael Myers in pursuit, and it's sort of a chase film, right? There's like a car chase, and there's a bus. There's a bus depot, and Jamie ends up leaving the bus in this bus depot where in a bathroom stall where no one hears the baby for like at least a day, right? Like, or at least overnight.
Full last day. Yeah.
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 At the same, and that's I think where she's in the theatrical cut where she's killed. Michael kills her there, and it's just over, and that's it. Kind of like writing out that character like they did Rachel Carruthers in Halloween 5, which is just people did not want to see that.
Right.
So, and that cult, by the way, the Thorn cult, that plot line kind of comes from the novelization of the first film. So, which is, I think, a very hard to find novelization for anybody who collects those. But they do get into the like, how is this happening to Michael Myers? This, these spirit, like this cult, kind of gets this spirit to take over the child Michael Myers and possess him, really, to start killing. And his grandfather is a character in the book, and he like kind of is aware of it as well. So But that's where Daniel Farrens kind of saw that plot line and was like, well, let's really blow that up, because it's brought up in 5, but we'll really dive in all the way here, but it's still very messy. So in the meantime, we meet the Strode family, which is Laurie Strode's family, Jamie Lee Curtis's character. So this is where I got a little lost, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. So they're her adopted family, because I guess this is following the storyline that Laurie Strode and Michael Myers are brother and sister, right?
Right.
Because Jamie Lloyd is Laurie Strode's daughter.
Yes.
So she is, uncle and niece with Michael Myers. So, all right. So we're seeing the rest of the Strode family, which the mother, played by Kim Darby, who I love.
Shout out.
Yeah, just the great Kim Darby from Better Off Dead, and one of the early episodes of Star Trek, and just so many cool things. Great actress who's just not given anything to work with here, but
no, she's still great though.
Yeah, totally.
Like she's definitely a strong part to this.
Yeah.
And her small bits, but like,
yeah,
it was good to see her.
Yeah. And Marianne Hagan, who's a new actress, cast as Kara Strode, who would be Laurie Strode's adopted sister, I guess, younger sister.
Stepsister, half sister, adopted sister, not blood sister.
Well, Laurie wouldn't be blood related to any of the Strodes, so
right. Okay,
they're all family. So I think she is Laurie Strode's adopted.
Do they mention her at all in the movie? I don't even think they mention her.
No, they don't mention Laurie at all. Zero mention.
Yeah.
But Kara Strode basically is Laurie Strode. She looks like her, she dresses like her, acts like her. So it's basically a redo of that character.
And she's in college.
She's got a son. Yeah. And now she's got a son, Danny Strode, which is who the cult is trying to get to pass on.
Right. He's
evil
also
from Michael to Danny.
He also shows signs of accepting of the pure evil, I guess. Like it can be handed off to him. Like he hears the voices, he sees the man in black in visions, like all that jazz.
Yeah. So we meet all these characters and we just see them, and that's where we see Tommy Doyle as the creepy guy across the street who's just staring at them out the window
with his camera face. Like, dude, 100%. Kara is not going to be like, who's that guy that lives across? She's going to be like, give me the phone. I'm calling the cops. This creep is staring in your bedroom with a camera. Like,
yeah.
And on top of that, so the Strodes have moved into the Myers house. Why?
Because
how?
Because good decisions.
Well, remember Laurie's father or whatever, or uncle,
John Strode, who's a very lovely human.
In the first movie, I think wasn't he a real estate agent, and even in back then, so that's why they had access to these houses. Yeah. So there was a minor throwaway. Your brother couldn't sell this house, so that's why we lived here. That's what what's her face says, right?
They probably got it for a great deal.
Well, so
so free house, even if it's a murder house.
I mean, but that was like the Myers house became like the haunted house in the town of Haddonfield, right? Like everyone stayed away from it; they were scared of it. But I guess now we're gonna loop it back into the movie.
Well, you get a fresh coat of paint on it, and you move in.
Yeah,
it
wipes away all the history.
Yeah, so I think Kim Darby that sort of gives us that info, right? When she's yelling at what's his face, her husband,
John Strode,
John
Strode.
There was a I will say on Twitter, X, whatever it's called now, they're used. I think they got taken down, but there was a whole bunch of character parody accounts and of all the characters in the Halloween franchise, and they were hilarious. And I think the same person did all of them, but that's John Strode was so funny. So if check it out if they're still in existence. That those parody accounts are really hilarious. But
Yeah.
and it was always like there was all the whole storylines going on about like, you know, Sheriff Brackett and his reelection, and then Sheriff Meeker was coming in, and then they like involved some of the stuff from the movie. So it's worth checking out. But anyway, the so where's Dr. Loomis in all this? And the great Donald Pleasence in what would be his final film performance. Donald Pleasence would pass away after they finished filming, but before they shot the reshoots.
retakes,
So
yeah.
they were kind of stuck with what they had for him, and I think they dedicated the film to him as well. But what do you do with that character? To me, it feels like that character is really pushed into a corner of like you kind of done everything you're going to do with him. What else is left?
You make him the new Man in Black. You hand off the Watcher, and he
That's what
bellows
Yes, yeah.
in the hallway in
At the end
agony.
of, is that what that means? He has to take over, right? He has to be. He
Yes.
gets the rune, so
Yeah. In this version,
he's not happy
yes,
about
that's-
that.
Yeah.
In this
Well,
version, what happens in the other ones?
The other ones, he just goes back in. He says, "I have business to take care of," and he goes back inside.
So so that they're very different endings. The theatrical
Very
cut and the
different.
producer's cut. The theatrical ending is after, you know, the action has happened inside the hospital, and we see Michael confronting Dr. Wynn / the Man in Black, who we'll talk about next. Dr. Loomis helps Tommy and Kara and Danny escape in the truck, and it's the same scene where they drive off in the truck, and you leave Dr. Loomis standing outside the hospital, and then it cuts back to Tommy and Kara driving, and you just hear Loomis scream, and that's the end of the movie, and then it like goes to black. So it's just like, what happened? Like, we have no idea. That didn't make any sense at all. So in this one, we get a little more clarity that he sees them off. He goes back. Dr. Loomis goes back inside the hospital, and he sees Michael Myers laying on the ground. And as he approaches him, takes the mask off. It's Dr. Wynn, who in his death, you know, on his deathbed, passes off the leadership of the cult to Dr. Loomis via that tattoo. So
Well, and then
that's
the
kinda
theatrical,
and then he screams, and then Dr. Loomis screams, and that's where the scream came
Yeah.
from that they used.
in the theatrical cut, do they even have the scenes in the like the actual like whatever, I don't know what to call it, but like the seance scenes or whatever, where Kara is out, you know, Kara gets knocked out, she wakes up, she's like tied down, all the people from Thorn are around her, like different
Which is
people
everybody
from
in the town.
the town, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't think in the theatrical cut that, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think in the theatrical cut it's as detailed. Like the whole
Right.
part where she's like, "Oh, wait, you're like that baby is you and Jamie's baby." Like in this version, in the producer's cut, they do this whole thing where Michael Myers and Jamie are the parents of that baby. Like basically,
Yeah.
that Michael Myers is the one that got Jamie pregnant, and that's his kid.
Yeah.
But they don't do that in the theatrical cut, I don't think.
No, they're all of those scenes are very different. They're just like cut together totally different. There's different, you know, angles are sort of taking on it and what they're not getting into. It's mostly what they're not getting into. And yeah, that they expanded in the producer's cut. So that's where Dr. Loomis is left in this version. In the producer's cut, he's left with, now he's taking over the cult. And that's actually the last time we see Dr. Loomis in any storyline, because Donald Pleasence passed away, and we saw in in one of the new Halloween films that they, you know, went back and reshot, or, you know, shot some footage with a lookalike actor, but they've never really replaced Donald Pleasence, because I don't know. You say how can you? But they do it all the time now. So
right.
So and this marks the end of really like this Jamie Lloyd trilogy storyline, this offshoot from the second movie.
Yeah, because the next movies are like, aren't they HBO H2O and Resurrection and like they bring Jamie Lee Curtis back.
Right. Yeah, the next one's fun. Like when we get to H2O next year, like we're gonna have a lot of fun with that one because that was a big deal, and it was a reset for the franchise and trying to get it back on its feet again and in a real way. And like John Carpenter was semi involved with it, and obviously Jamie Lee being a presence, it's like gonna take it to a different level. But that's the many different. We talked about this before. The many different plot lines of this series, that there's one and then the new movies. There's 1, 2, and H2O and Part 8, and then there's 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and so this one wraps up that that path.
Yeah, this is the end of this universe.
Yes.
Of storylines.
Yeah, where Laurie Strode's been killed, and now Jamie Lloyd's been killed, and there's really. Dr. Loomis is, I guess, in this version, he's still alive. So, in the theatrical cut, it's insinuated that he is killed. But, so it's what a mess. I do want to talk about Dr. Wynn / the Man in Black, because Mitchell Ryan, who we lost a year or two ago, is just such a great actor. And I think he's really tries with that character. And the scene where it's revealed that the Man in Black is Dr. Wynn, I think was like a total like villain scene, and he does, I think, the best you can with it. But I mean, from Lethal Weapon to Grosse Point Blank and a million other movies and TV shows, like he was just one of those great character actors.
I liked him in Liar Liar.
He was in so many things in like the late 90s. He was just all over the place. That was the Jenna Elfman show. I forget what that show was called, but
Dharma and Greg? No.
Dharma and Greg, that he was, I think, one of the parents in that. So he was.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm really distracted because I've been thinking this ever since you mentioned Alien 3. I'm like, could Ripley take Michael Myers down? That's all I can think about.
Hell yeah.
I would say Ripley could take out Michael Myers.
I mean, I don't know though. What we know of Michael Myers, he's had so many movies. He's unkillable. He's a force of nature.
She's faced some pretty tough stuff.
I mean, the thing it's almost like it's almost an unfair kind of thing. Could Superman beat Superman? I don't know.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah. This Man in Black character, again, it was just a character that was created out of nowhere for Part 5 that they're trying to.
Let's leave it on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. And they're trying to
There had to be an intention, though. There had to be we're not going to somebody had to be like, if I make the next one.
I mean,
if we make the next one, we're going to expand.
Well, no, right? I think you're right. I think that was like, we'll
figure
like
it
they
out
just
in the
made
next something
movie.
up.
Well, they did in 5. They made it up. And then at the very end, it was like something they tagged on at the very end.
Yeah.
I think it's a good story idea.
There was no story idea. I mean, during 5, it was, we'll figure it out later. Wouldn't it be cool if we just have this mystery character floating around?
Right.
The J.J. Abrams style of filmmaking.
Yes, very much so.
Present the unanswerable and don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
This is where he learned from.
He does it better.
I think this is where he took it from.
Yeah.
But the explanation they come up with in this movie, I think it's a good idea. It's just they didn't give it enough.
Yeah, but
life. They didn't do anything with it.
You're also, again, this was not the version you saw was not the theatrical cut.
Oh, well, all right. I guess we're okay.
So this version, they added a couple things here and there, and they like fleshed it out a little bit better. And that's why people are like, okay, this version is the version. Now it's like kind of credited as the best, the most logical of the versions. But if you saw it in the theater when it released, like a lot of the things they did to try and tie that even more together, like they weren't there. And the editing in general was a lot more choppy, a lot more like MTV video music influence. Like it was
Ugh,
all over the place. Like it was
I don't like that.
yeah, it was like this version is I mean, for our purposes, it is the most like well put together story of all the versions. But that's not the version that came out. This version didn't come out
Okay.
until like much later. Like on a DVD, like
how
Blu-ray
easy is it?
special.
How easy is it for me to see the theatrical version? Is it even considered like? Do they put it out anywhere? Like, or they disavowed it and like
So
this
here's the
this
thing.
producer's version is like the official.
This is
official version
now
now.
the official.
This is
version.
now the official version. Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
You
if-
can
if
you can
it's-
find the theatrical though, I think, on older DVDs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you go to
Videotech.
Videotech,
Hey.
I'll bet you can get it.
And they're new in their new building, which is
And their new location.
in Highland
New
Park.
fancy
New location. Yep.
Head on over
The-
to Videotech.
The producer's cut was a bootleg version for years and years, and it was like this, underground cut that kind of got somehow started getting spread around. That was like, it was not clean. It was like an answer print almost that
Wow.
just started making its way, and people were making VHS copies of it at the conventions and everything. And then eventually, the studio was like, okay, I think that really enough momentum got behind it that was like, we should make this the real one. And if this is the one that's streaming, then that's saying that's definitely the one they want you to see.
Yeah.
Get the other cuts. So
Yeah, you can't find the director's cut to stream that I could find. Like all the versions, I mean, this was obviously on Paramount Plus, but even the versions, like if you buy them from other streamers, like I think it's this version. There's a director's cut as well, which apparently has, I don't know what the differences are, except that the death scenes I think are a bit more
graphic,
gratuitous. Yeah.
Yeah. Like John Strode, when Michael Myers comes back to the house, he starts wiping out all the Strode family members, or most of them. He electrocutes John Strode, I think, in the basement, and his head ends up exploding. But you only see that, I think, in the director's cut.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
this
character's
is like
such a jerk. I mean, he's just like,
oh yeah,
nothing
he's
redeeming.
Like, let's get to this guy's death, please.
Yeah, and you know it the minute he opens his mouth. You're like, oh,
as soon as he
this
opens
guy's
his
dead.
mouth, everything he says is like, kill this guy.
Yeah,
yeah, the actual like murders are bloodless and like nothing for the most part, and like not even like it's amazing. Like this is like such a neutered, like, I mean, yeah, like they added stuff to try to create coherence, but this is really a nothing movie in a lot of ways. Nothing stands out, other than the casual incest, cult behavior, some minor. No, I guess there's not too much problematic stuff, right?
You know what, David, you should pitch this movie right now. Like where you're selling it to Brent and I. How would you sell this movie?
Oh, you know how Michael Myers, like we've seen him and he's been like just this unkillable like machine, and he fucks up everybody, and like it's just like massively cool deaths and stuff, and he's a real threat to the neighborhood, and nobody knows anything about him. Let's erase all that. He has all these bloodless murders. He impregnates his niece, who gives birth. There's this cult that like just loves his evil, and and then hopefully we can make it so he passes his evil on to a child, and then we'll do more movies with a new character. What do you think?
Sold. We're in. How much money do you need?
I need $300.
And on top of it, we're gonna bring back the guy who had the weakest silhouette ever for the shape of Michael Myers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. George P. Wilbur is brought back from the fourth movie. He was Michael Myers in the fourth one, who we talked about it in that episode. I'm not,
he's not threatening.
He's a good stuntman and everything, but they never recaptured that shape of mostly of Nick Castle from the first film.
Mm,
And I like Dick Warlock in the second one. I can take that one, but
yeah.
up until the new ones, they didn't have that presence, that intimidating presence.
Yeah, I agree. You know, what's funny is, so I spoke a lot in the fourth one about how I felt like, you know, the the body of Michael Myers in that movie just seemed very like kind of thin and not threatening, and you know, just kind of scrawny.
Yeah.
Apparently, so they brought George Wilbur back, but when they did the reshoots, they brought a different guy back to play the part because the director thought that George Wilbur was too bulky and they wanted to thin him out.
Oh my
which
God.
like blows my mind. I don't understand. It didn't compute. I thought I read that wrong. I was like, this what? Huh?
What?
But yeah, that's real. And I was like, I couldn't tell the difference between either of the two. And the mask in this one is god awful. It's just so flaccid.
Yeah, the mask is made by John Carl Buechler, who was the director of Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, Brent's favorite in the series.
It is one of my favorite in the series, yes.
So, yeah, so he was a creature effects, and special effects, one of the best in the industry really at that time. And he did that, molded it right around George Wilbur's face. But again, it just doesn't capture the magic of that first film at all.
Well, and the neck piece part of it just is always kind of like floppy and to the side.
Yep.
Like it just doesn't look like it fits.
Yeah. And the hair is not, it's kind of wild in the back and all over. And
yeah.
Yeah. And by the way,
it's a miss.
Michael Myers is like barely in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
You rarely see him. We spend so much time with Loomis and Kara Strode and Tommy and the Man in Black and all the other, stuff that's going on. Like there's really not a lot of room left for Michael Myers to do his thing. The movie's just so overcrowded with story that what works for the original Halloween, and like a lot of Carpenter things, it's very straightforward. Just stay on task for what this story is, and you don't need all these different things. And this is like the total opposite direction of just too much going on.
Well, you had to add the sexy quotient with Kara's brother and his girlfriend.
Yeah. Yep.
And
gotta add that.
There's just this other side, which we spend a way too much time with them, and like the Barry Sims, like this whole like
Howard
shock
Stern.
jock.
Yeah.
They tried to get Howard Stern to play that part. They actually
he was shooting private parts, I think.
Yeah, he turned it down because he wanted to do private parts. But they reached out to try and get him.
He would have been great. I think that'd be great. That's like what's her face in the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 2. Who was that artist that did she had like a live concert? Oh man, it's gonna bug me. It's like, Macy Gray in a Spider-Man movie, zeitgeisty of the moment. Not that Howard Stern's he's been around for 50 years now. So, but 40 years, but it would have been cool to have like Howard Stern at sort of his raunchiest time.
Yeah.
To be the raunchy character and then get killed in a Halloween movie. I think that would have been awesome.
Everything with that Barry Sims character I thought was awful, and it was so hard to listen to. He's just like beyond a despicable character, and all the callers that were calling in was just like has anyone gone to an acting class or a voice acting class? Like it just screams like not a movie to me.
I just thought it was like if any of these people listen to the radio,
yeah,
I'm just like
nobody talks like that.
Like no one calls in like, but yeah, I hated so much of that portion, and that's a good 20% of the movie. Is like the brother and the Barry Sims obsession,
Yeah,
and then him on the air because he makes a big publicity thing. He's kind of a problem for Michael Myers, right? Like he's bringing all this attention on the cult
right.
or rather like in the town. So it's like all this other stuff could happen
Well,
the
that's
way I think
it's
Michael
it's
Myers wanted it
through
to.
the it's through the radio show that Dr. Loomis gets brought back into the story, right? Because
Oh, that's
he's
right.
retired. Dr. Wynn um goes to Dr. Loomis to get him to take over Smith's Grove Sanitarium, right?
Right.
Or hospital, and they're together listening to Barry Sims' radio show when Jamie, who's at the moment escaped from Michael Myers, calls in, and she's like begging Dr. Loomis for help. I don't know how she would know he'd be listening to that radio program,
The
but he
only
was.
radio program on the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they go to get in the middle of it again. So
Can I just say, and how awesome is it that there's like 2 or 3 cell phone use scenes and they are very casual about it? It's almost like, oh, we've reached the cell phone era where it's just sort of ubiquitous for these
yeah,
characters. There's like two or
Yeah.
three scenes, and they don't make a big deal. Like, I got my new Motorola. Let me call. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, I know car phones already existed for so long, but like personal cell phones that are like not the bricks, like that's like I don't know. Like, to me, that's a huge deal in movies because that changes so much of like what you would do in a horror film is like if you had a cell phone, a lot of this stuff would not happen, right?
yeah.
And
What's funny, when I was researching September 1995, one of the things that popped up is that text messaging was like a brand new thing. Like it just started happening around this time, but you could only text from, like, you had to be on the same carrier. Like you couldn't
All
text from carrier to carrier. You had to be
Yep.
like, I don't know who the carriers were then. AT&T was probably around, but
Yeah.
whoever,
and they probably and the texting probably cost like 50 cents per text,
probably.
like
Yeah.
something like that, like back in 95.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you it definitely must have cost something. Wow, isn't that funny, boy? That's 28 years ago. We've been living with the cell phones. That I don't know, I think 1995 is a perfect spot to like, that's a transition point,
Oh, yeah.
everyone's getting
Yeah.
online,
Yep.
everyone's just got personal computers are starting to enter everyone's home, and
The World
Yep.
Wide Web is becoming a thing right then.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
then.
and they're like
So-
making it very casual, just even like him using the computer to show the runes. They're not making a big deal of like how this is computer technology. But what I fucking loved was that he was listening to the radio show and recording it on a reel-to-reel, and I'm like, you like this, like
Yeah.
this 25-year-old dude's recording the radio on a reel-to-reel, like instead of
Yeah.
a Maxell cassette.
Yep.
Absolutely not.
So baffling, this movie. There's a couple things I did like about it though. One was I appreciated they shot this in the fall of '94 in Salt Lake City. So, and it was actually the same area that they shot parts 4 and 5. So you have a little bit of visual consistency there. And I also really enjoyed the score for this one, which was of course done by the great Alan Howarth, who was a former I don't know if it's a partner, but did a lot of the scores for the early Carpenter films.
Yeah.
Before they kind of split up, and then he went his own way. But I think he did a good job of keeping that sound consistent with the other films and the Halloween theme as well. So I like those. That's about, yeah. And I do think Donald Pleasence, again, consistent with the other performances, always a little bit over the top in certain scenes and takes, but that was his thing. And
they got rid of his scarred up face. They
Oh,
even
yeah.
made a whole big deal in the movie. Like, oh yeah, I got some surgery done to clean it up.
yeah,
Like, good job,
i.e.
buddy.
Donald Pleasence didn't want that shit put
Yeah.
on his face anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
Which I can make sense. Apparently his health, like he was in bad health while they were shooting. So, like,
Well, you could tell. I mean, you could see that he's thinner. He's lost weight.
Yeah.
And he would pass away, what, I think 4 months after they finished filming.
Yeah, he pass away was it February 95?
Yeah, February 95. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I guess it's fitting that his final role is as Dr. Loomis. That was really his iconic character, but he also played a lot of other great characters that get overlooked. You know, it's like this and James Bond, and maybe The Great Escape. Nobody looks at all the other stuff that he did, but
Yeah.
he did have a really, really good career and a great actor. So the movie is, they finish filming. The movie's a mess. Dimension ends up approving reshoots and additional scenes, but does not bring Daniel Farrens back because there's just too many cooks in the kitchen, and they were like adding scenes on the fly when they were shooting, and like studio hadn't approved certain things, and it just doesn't work like that. And they were like wrapping the crew, but then they would keep a few people on and keep shooting, and it was doing a lot of weird odd things to get
literally writing scripts like pages while they're shooting them.
Yeah. Like the actors don't know, and probably, that may have contributed to what was happening with Paul Rudd, that like if the actors don't have enough time with it, they're not going to be able to just spout those lines as well as they could. So
Paul Rudd, if you're listening, by the way, look, you're a badass. I hope one day you and I can laugh about this performance together.
I would hope that he would at this point. I'm sure he does.
I feel like he's the type of guy who has a very good sense of humor about himself.
Yeah.
I gotta imagine he's been asked about it in the last 10 years. Like, I mean, there's gotta be something about it.
Yeah. I wonder if they approached him. I wonder if they approached him to for the new films to come back as Tommy Doyle.
Maybe. Yeah.
Wonder if that happened.
Hard pass.
With Danny McBride writing and producing it, there's a connection there.
Yeah. I could have seen him being all right with that.
Yeah.
Probably way too busy though. Probably just way too busy.
Yeah. So, all right, should we talk a little box office glory and see how this one actually fared?
Yes.
Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, comes out September 29th, 1995. It comes out against Devil in a Blue Dress, The Big Green, Steal Big, Steal Little, and Moonlight and Valentino. Those are all blasts from the past.
I don't remember any of those.
I remember Devil in the Blue Dress, right? That was Denzel?
Yeah, that was Denzel.
I remember The Big Green. I don't think I've ever heard Steal Big, Steal Little. And I remember Moonlight and Valentino. I don't think I've seen it, but I remember.
Those were indie films. They were much smaller releases, but technically out that weekend. It had a $5 million budget, and it opens up at number 2.
Ooh.
Has a $7.3 million opening weekend, and it ends up right between 7 was still number 1 at the box office, and Devil in a Blue Dress was number 3. So that's your top 3. Its total domestic run was $15.1 million. So again, they made money, but not anywhere near like a $10 million profit at most was not what they wanted. It ends up as number 97 of 1995. Right between Muriel's Wedding and Wings of Courage. So really way down the list. Top at the box office was Toy Story, Batman Forever, and Apollo 13.
Ooh.
Now, looking at the Halloween movies specifically, where this one falls financially, well, it's number 9 out of 11. I don't include those 2 Rob Zombie ones, which we will never discuss here. They're the blasphemy, even though Danielle Harris is in one of them. So
he is.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. That means we won't be covering those.
No,
we won't.
Nope.
We've
only got 2 left. We
don't need to recover any franchise reboots. 2 left. H2 on Resurrection.
Yes.
That's right.
So just going back to this one, it comes in number 9 out of the 11 Halloween films that we're talking about. And it's right between Halloween 4 and Halloween 3. So still all those at the disappointing end of the spectrum financially. Now, where do you guys rank this one with the amongst the 6 films in the series so far? Where do you put this one personally?
Dude, I honest to God believe that each of the movies progressively get worse. At this point, 3 has now become the third best movie just by default, because 4, 5, and 6 are, for me, I don't enjoy that. I don't think they were done well. You know, like I could be into the Thorne thing, I could be into the Jamie Lloyd thing, but like it's just so shoddy, the whole deal, you know, that it doesn't really work for me. So like I put it smack dab at the end, man.
Yeah, I'll put it at the bottom.
I mean, maybe I'll bump it up to 5 for Paul Rudd. I don't know, but that's it. That can't get any higher.
I agree. I think I guess I would probably say I like them in the order that they came out at this point. Yeah, 6 definitely being the worst. It's really hard to watch.
Yeah,
5 is hard to watch too, but at least there's Danielle Harris and Loomis is more consistent.
Right.
And yeah,
you do okay.
Yeah,
you got to give him a for effort.
Yeah. Now, what do you think? Okay, so a modern audience, David. This is you. A modern audience. But you're seeing it now, today, 2023. You're seeing this movie for the first time. What do you think an audience, your average audience from today, is going to think watching this movie now?
Boring and confusing and not really it's not scary. It's not that engaging. None of the characters are really likable.
It feels like a strange, like 70s, maybe even 80s movie, but it's like mid 90s. Like it just doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's got a weird,
better equipment.
Yeah.
Like they're still using, they're still using like the 80s formula, but it's the mid 90s, you know? And clearly the horror audience is tired of what they're being fed and they want something new and different. And they're going to get it a year later.
Well, yeah,
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah,
not quite. Scream though.
The Relic. I'm talking about the Relic.
The Relic's Mimic.
But also, you've got movies coming out at the same time. Again, like 7, you know, that are like dark and terrifying and compelling and like so masterfully, like, I mean, they're grotesque, but so masterfully like put together and manipulating. I mean, it's just like, you know, like you take a movie like 7 and you compare it to something like this, and it's like leagues different, you know, and it's just like you're not going to be able to compete when that's like the new expectation for things. And that's why, you know, like that's why Scream works, you know, because like I think Scream, it took a look at all of it and, you know, obviously got super meta and was able to kind of turn everything on its head and have you look at the same thing that you've seen a bunch of different times, but look at it differently and like kind of, you know, be self-aware, you know, and it's like everybody knew it, you know, the formula was played out.
Yeah. And Scream is so, you know, watching it now, I mean, I saw it as a horror movie for a really long time. Now I watch it and I see it as this dark comedy that's just as brilliant as the horror movie is. So there's like different ways you can watch that movie. And
it stands up in both sides.
Absolutely. So I just, you know, when I talk to people about the Halloween franchise now, there's so much to say that really, like, if you just want a great movie, like just watch the first movie. If you want to see a little more, watch the first and second movie. After that, they just kind of they lose their way, and maybe part 4 like tries to keep back to the formula, but it's just nowhere near the level of 1 or 2, really.
Well, at this point, it's like what's interesting because of all the different choose your own adventure is like what are you most interested in? Do you know, like, are you interested in like an occult type thing? Are you interested in the Jamie Lee Curtis character? Are you interested in, you know, just the terror of a Michael Myers like hunting people down? You know, like you've got like options, you know, like I think the worst thing you can do in this particular case is watching 1 through whatever in specific order. Instead of that, like find whatever story you're most interested in and just watch those, you know, and then like later on go back and like watch this other chunk and see how they work together. But like you don't have to, I don't think you necessarily
David, not so much.
I mean, David doesn't look, you know,
I'm not representative of anything.
yeah, this is for people who are curious, you know, like about these movies. David, we forced to be here through contract, and so
he's
like,
actually, you guys can't see it, he's handcuffed to his
there's
his
no
booth.
he cannot avoid this situation. You know, we're making him watch them one after the other, but I would suggest if you're gonna watch them, like figure out, like you can find on the internet like what the storylines are for each one and how they kind of connect, see which one sounds the most interesting and try and watch it that way. Because if you're going to try and watch it as one big long piece, like it's all over the place.
Yeah, really
you know?
is.
So
Yeah,
it's a good point.
choose your own adventure. I love that. That's the way to talk about the Halloween franchise.
I think it's the best way to like summarize the experience. Like it's choose your own adventure, you know, like what are you into and what are you interested in like watching?
But I just can't wait to see Jamie again in a Halloween movie. So next year,
Jamie Lee or Jamie Lloyd?
Jamie Lee.
Oh, yeah.
Jamie Lee.
Jamie Lee. She's coming back. Next Halloween, Shocktober.
I have to wait a whole year.
Well, you can watch it whenever you want, but
watch it again. Do that.
Yeah,
I don't want to risk having to watch it twice.
Well, wait a minute. So, and we'll get into this in that episode, but yeah, like we're about to go into yet another reboot of this franchise, but we're gonna get Jamie Lee Curtis back. We're gonna get LL Cool J.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come on, right there. He was
dude. He was
LL,
like in a
baby.
bunch of shit right around that time too. Like he was like the face of the hip hop acting game at that moment.
Lucy and yeah. But we're gonna get a very small role for Janet Leigh. She's coming by. We've got Adam Arkin, Josh Hartnett.
Yeah.
Also
a major player at the moment.
Yeah.
Michelle Williams,
and I think Dawson's Creek was already on, I believe. So this was her first movie, though, I believe. So
yeah,
I
mean, H2O was a big deal. I remember,
huge deal.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
no,
I'm excited. I saw this one at the theater too. Like this one got me amped up to go. I was like, yes, Jamie Lee's back.
Yeah, we were in college together when it came out. It was a huge deal. So it's gonna be fun to look at that one. Though. No, we didn't see it together. But I'm looking forward to a movie where you care about the characters, and you know, it's like things. At least I remember H2O making sense. I have not seen that in a long time, but we'll.
I doubt it makes sense, but it's going to be fun to rewatch.
Yeah. All right, so that's Halloween 6: The Curse of Michael Myers. Let's come back to our 6 degrees of ReconCinemation. We were trying to connect Halloween 6 to Toy Story. What'd you guys come up with?
Brent, how'd you do?
I did good. I got it. I mean, Paul Rudd makes this not hard, but I don't know. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
I can go. You probably got a better pathway. So, with The Curse of Michael Myers, we have Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd was in Wet Hot American Summer with Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper was in Wedding Crashers with Christopher Walken. Christopher Walken was in Catch Me If You Can with Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is in Toy Story.
Nice.
That's good.
Well done.
I'm gonna go.
Not bad.
I'm gonna go Paul Rudd in Avengers with Jeremy Renner. Jeremy Renner in Hawkeye with Vincent D'Onofrio. Vincent D'Onofrio in Full Metal Jacket with R. Lee Ermey. And R. Lee Ermey in Toy Story.
Very nice.
God, nice.
Nice, guys.
That's a nice pathway.
Just for shits and giggles, I'm gonna top both you guys and do it in one move.
Cheater though. See, but then you can't. It's like, come on, it's rigged. But go ahead.
Here.
I want to hear it.
Paul Rudd starred in Clueless with Wallace Shawn, who is the voice of Rex in Toy Story.
There you go.
He's one of the teachers in Clueless.
Yep, you're right.
Oh,
but
there
Paul
you go.
Rudd's the key. Anyway,
Yeah.
you can't get to it without Paul Rudd. So
I bet you could, but
a little tough.
Paul Rudd just makes it super easy.
yeah.
I bet you could get it with Donald Pleasence.
It would be harder, but yeah, probably. I'm thinking
Probably by
Donald
way of
Pleasence
Jamie.
to R. Lee Ermey somehow feels like
Well,
a route.
Yeah. That's why. That's how I got to R. Lee Ermey, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh, but this is easier just because I know D'Onofrio's in Daredevil. I was like, he's got to be in other Marvel stuff, and I remembered he was in Hawkeye as well, and I was like, oh, that's easy. So, you could probably get to it through Mitchell Ryan too, if anybody who's been in a couple. It's like you can usually get there. I bet you could actually get there through Kim Darby as well. Now,
Kim Darby and Mitchell Ryan both connect to John Cusack.
Yeah.
So, which
just
Brent,
need
you're Cusack's #1 fan. We all know.
Hey, I love John Cusack, except I think that he needs to stop being a freaking baby about shit and get back with Savage Steve Austin. That's all.
Yeah.
That's my big gripe. Put your diapers up and wipe away the tears and get back to your roots, dude.
Oh my god.
He hasn't done
right.
anything good in 72 years.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Oh boy.
Sorry.
Here comes that Cusack vengeance again.
I know that's
all
not
right.
true.
Well, guys, this wraps up our Shocktober 2023. What a month we've had. We really started early because we looked at Alligator, and then we went to, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Friday the 13th Part 8, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, Friday the 13th Part 8, The Exorcist, and a look back at William Friedkin, and now Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers is in the books. Are you, David, how excited are you for the month of November? And we're gonna get into some Oscar level movies. We're gonna shift gears and just change the kind of movies we're looking
Time
at.
to get back to some films.
Yes, some real films.
Some cinema.
Well, the Exorcist was up there.
Yeah,
but,
The Exorcist. Come on, that's legit filmmaking.
Kind of a silly movie.
Kind of a silly movie.
It's kind of hilarious, really.
It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny in a modern context.
Not Repossessed. The Exorcist.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not as funny as Repossessed,
No, not quite. No, a little different.
but it is funny.
But yeah, so stay tuned. We're going to have a couple of great movies coming up next month, so stay tuned for that. Quick shout out and thank you to our friend E.K. Wimmer for the theme music, and don't forget to check out his podcast, Laser Graves, and our good friend Curtis Moore. Thank you for the poster. You can check us out. We're on social media at ReconCinemation Podcast on X/Twitter and Instagram. You can find us there. Check out our archives at ReconCinemation.com. And while you're at it, give us a 5-star rating and a review. It always helps get the show boosted a little bit. So we appreciate that very much. And guys, that's it for Shocktober. Here we head into November. And we'll see you next time on ReconCinemation.
Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Losing Donald Pleasence at the end of Halloween 6 was a huge blow to us personally, and the franchise, and the fans, and I have nothing but great memories of Donald. Donald was just the warmest, loveliest guy.
Oh yeah, I like Donald Pleasence very much. I really do. I mean, I didn't get to know him very much because he was quiet, and he was a private person, I do believe. But I liked his aura. I mean, he was a man of theater and film, and what could you say? In another way, he was like Cassavetes. He was an icon, of all those earlier films.
Donald Pleasence and I didn't actually shoot together, but I did meet Donald during the filming, and I think that was one of the exciting elements actually about the film. I was like, oh, Donald Pleasence is actually doing the movie. So that felt special in some way, and we had meals together and whatnot, but I didn't actually work with him. I think he's a great actor.
Donald Pleasence was an amazing gentleman. He's one of my favorite actors. It was a pleasure to meet him and work with him. He was always one of those actors who you can see works the scene. He's prepared. There was an aura around him when he would walk on the set, so it was great.
He's a real actor, so his delivery doesn't need a score to pump it up.
Donald was definitely coming up in years and pretty feeble by the time we did the movie, so I just thought he was a real trooper for still being at work. And he was invested in it, and he seemed to care about the movie, so.
Unfortunately, I didn't get to work with Donald Pleasence, which he had already passed, so there was a very somber kind of feel on set, and it didn't quite seem right. It didn't really seem right without Donald there.
We just remember him fondly forever and dedicated the film to him, and you could dedicate all the films preceding that to him. He loved the character of Loomis. I think what he and John Carpenter created with that character was something that he loved playing, and I believe at one point they asked him when he's going to stop, and he said 22, so I think he was excited to do the role. He loved playing the role, and he loved being up there in Utah with all of us, and nothing but great memories of Donald.